Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, I'm going to react to dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you. This is going to be really interesting, genuinely so, because we all know that national curriculums, whether they're the UK national curriculum or the US national curriculum, they're built in a way to kind of give you basically what you kind of need to get a rough, good general knowledge base. But there are tons and tons of information that's left out, maybe because it, maybe doesn't paint the country in a good light, or maybe the information is a bit too graphic for young people to learn about. But there is just tons and tons and tons of historical material out there that most of the population isn't aware of. So this video, I'm hoping it's going to really have a lot of interesting, juicy facts that, someone like me and most of you guys will be interested in. So I've got a good feeling about this one.
Dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you, part 13. In the 1930s, there was a trend among colleges in the US where students would attempt to swallow as many live goldfish as possible. Eventually, they created the International Goldfish Gulping Association, in which the all-time champion Joe DiLiberto set a record of sucking down 89 goldfish.
Ugh, that's just disgusting, man. Imagine having 18...
For nearly 1,000 years, many women in China intentionally mangled their feet from a young age as they believed that small feet were beautiful. A common hairstyle in 17th century Europe was the Polish plait, a gross, smelly mass of crusty, matted hair cemented together by pus, nits, and dirt. The hairstyle was believed to have healing properties and could supposedly protect people from illnesses. During the Iron
It looks kind of like dreadlocks, but dreadlocks that haven't been maintained at all, just been allowed to just fester and get, matted and dirty and combine into one. Weird.
Iron Age in Ireland, a new king would be crowned in a ceremony in which he penetrated a horse in front of an audience. The horse would then be eaten for dinner by everyone who just witnessed them doing the dirty.
Wow. Greeks, Romans, and Spartans were really into anal for both sexes. Male warriors would do it as a sign of camaraderie and brotherhood, and women would do it before marriage as they only had to be vaginal virgins to get married. The first ever condoms were made of discarded animal parts, such as pig intestines and lambskin. Queen Victoria...
Ah, that's why you can get lambskin condoms, right? Yeah, you can still get those today.
Victoria's oldest son, King Edward VII, had a love chair custom made for having sex with multiple people at the same time. The same chair later sold for $4 million. In ancient Greece, large peepees were a sign that someone was foolish or stupid, which is why many statues depict small peepees, because this was a sign of intellect. When
I feel like whoever created that rumor back then probably was just angry at the size of his manhood.
An Athenian on trial in ancient Greece flashed her boobs to the court. The judges thought they were so perfect that they decided to spare her life.
Mayans made such
nicely done.
Horrible tasting alcohol that it was extremely common for people to just inject it into their butt so they didn't have to drink it. And guys, let me tell you, butt chugging gets you drunk fast. I mean, just look how happy this guy is. Ibrahim the Mad of the Ottoman Empire was obsessed with the genitals of a particular cow. So much so that he had a cast made of them in gold that he traveled with in hopes of finding a woman that matched. Eventually, though, he did find his Cinderella, which was a 350-pound woman that he nicknamed Sugar Cube. In the Elizabethan era, the word nothing was slang for vagina, coming from the idea that women had no thing between their legs. Therefore, Shakespeare's play Much Ado About Nothing is actually very much ado about fucking. 17th century Europe, it was extremely common for nannies to give young boys a handy to help them fall asleep at bedtime.
Whoa!
Mary Poppins could have been a totally different movie.
Oh my god.
Confessional booths were built by the church not for privacy, but to prevent priests from trying to have sex with the women who confessed their sins. Ancient Romans used a plant called silphium as an extremely effective contraceptive. However, they had so much sex that the plant actually went extinct.
Wow.
16-year-old Thomas Granger was the first person executed in the US when he was hanged at Plymouth in 1642. His crime? Having sex with a horse, cow, sheep, 2 goats, 2 calves, and a turkey. I guess pilgrims did a little more than just eat the turkey on Thanksgiving.
A battle between Egypt.
Oh my god, dude. Why, man? Anyway.
In Libya in 1182 BC, the commander of the Egyptian army ordered the pee-pees to be cut off the Libyan soldiers as proof of their defeat. Over 25,000 pee-pees of Libyan soldiers were collected. A famous
Seems a bit cruel, to be honest. I mean, they've already surrendered. Like, they've probably already given you their weapons and stuff. Do you really need to take their junk?
This ancient Greek doctor named Hippocrates would often taste his patients to diagnose them. And what would he taste, you may ask? Anything from earwax, urine, and even vaginas to diagnose people. In medieval England, royal newlyweds had to have sex in front of all their family members and the entire royal court just to prove that their child was of royal blood. In ancient New Zealand, warriors performed a dance before battle called haka, and they were required to have a full erection while dancing in order to intimidate their enemies. Let's just say their enemies knew exactly what was coming.
They still do the haka now, like in rugby games, basketball games. I think most of the New Zealand professional national teams do a haka.
Much like small peepees on guys, in ancient Greece, the unibrow was a sign of great beauty and intelligence in women. Huh. Oh, can you... After using the bathroom, ancient Romans used a sponge on the end of a stick to wipe their ass. And this same dirty sponge was shared by everyone in the community. Okay, this might be the one time that sharing is not caring. If you were found guilty of adultery in ancient Greece, the husband of the woman with whom you committed the crime had the right to sodomize you with radishes. In the Middle Ages, beaver testicles were considered a delicacy, so they were hunted specifically for this reason. But beavers eventually started to realize this, so they began biting off their own testicles so hunters would stop chasing them.
Wow.
Part 7.
I mean, first of all, that's quite intelligent of the beavers, although, you know, you wouldn't want to do that to yourself. But, you know, humans, man, we're such a... We can be really weird, can't we, in our behaviours? Like, sometimes there can be no real rhyme or reason for why we do certain things. We just feel compelled to do them.
The first vibrator in history was invented by Cleopatra. She filled up a hollow gourd with angry bees, causing the gourd to vibrate rapidly, and the rest is history. 4 different popes have died during or because of sex. 2 of a heart attack during, and 2 because they were killed by the husbands of the women that they had an affair with.
Wow.
Immediately after bussing onto his wife, the father of microbiology, Antoine van Leeuwenhoek, whipped out his microscope and observed sperm cells for the first time in human history.
Now that is crazy.
According to some accounts, King Tut was mummified with a boner. If you have an erection that lasts longer than 2,000 years, please contact an archaeologist for immediate medical assistance. The man who created autopilot, Lawrence Sperry, tested it out by having sex on board with his lover. However, the two bumped the controls and crashed the plane.
Oh no.
King
Did they make it? Did they survive? Probably not.
Herod had his wife's body preserved in honey after she died. He then proceeded to have sex with her dead corpse for 7 years.
Oh,
honey. Albert Einstein.
I mean, I guess he really loved her, but dude, I just don't know about that one, man. I think you gotta just let go.
Einstein not only married his first cousin Elsa, but also cheated on her with over 10 other women. Catherine the Great hired full-time professional foot ticklers whose only job was to tickle her feet and sing her songs. Soldiers during World War I were so desperate to get off the battlefield that they intentionally tried to get STDs so they would be discharged and sent home. In the 17th century, there was a form of twerking called molding cockle bread. It was the craze for young women at the time and turned the mundane actions of making bread into a sexual fun act.
During the 1800s, women were prescribed cocaine tampons, and many believed it to be a particularly effective treatment for gynecological diseases. Egyptian pharaohs would masturbate into the Nile River to worship the gods and keep the river flowing and prosperous. The world's oldest joke dates back to...
Because they probably drank water out of that, you know? Oh God. Hygiene, man. Like, the improvements to human hygiene over the last 50 maybe 100 years. Just astronomical. Astronomical.
In 1900 BC and is about a woman not farting on her husband's lap. Yes, the world's oldest joke is a fart joke. Famous composer Mozart wrote a masterpiece entitled Leck mich im Arsch, which translates to lick me in the ass. In 1910, New Jersey Mayor Arthur Whitaker invented a spanking squad for young offenders. The ancient Romans used to use urine as mouthwash. And
Oh, God.
not only did they swish around human piss in their mouth, they swished around animal piss too. King Tut's parents were most likely brother and sister, causing the king himself to have multiple birth defects. Dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you, part 2. A French president died from a blowjob. My man Felix Fauré literally got his soul sucked out of him. He was both coming and going. The deadliest female serial killer in American history had murdered 35 people with an axe by the time she was 18 years old. When the ruler of Poland, Jadwiga, was considering a marriage proposal from the Grand Duke of Lithuania, her peers were worried because it was rumored that he had massive genitals and would kill his wife on the wedding night. They ended up sending 2 spies to Lithuania to find out if it was true, and they came back and happily reported that there was nothing to worry about. Powdered wigs were originally invented to cover up head sores caused by syphilis. The first person to examine semen under a microscope was Antony van Leeuwenhoek, the father or daddy of microbiology. Dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you, part 1. Famous poet Edgar Allan Poe married his 13-year-old step-cousin at the age of 27. What are you doing, Step Poe? There is a legal pee-pee size in Iceland, and this comes from the Middle Ages where a man and a woman got married, and on their wedding night, the woman was so disappointed with how small it was that she took him back to the church to get a divorce. And because of her, a law was made that requires you to be 3 inches to get married. During times of war, some armies would wipe their poop on their weapons so that when they stab their enemies, they get that extra poison damage.
Oh my God. I mean, it's effective, but the smell. Imagine the smell on the battlefield.
There are many letters between Benjamin Franklin and various women that suggest that he might have had a fart fetish. The person who wrote Frankenstein lost her virginity on the top of her mother's grave. Great writer, but terrible funeral manners.
You are looking.
I mean, as crazy and bizarre as the majority of entries on that list were, I guess they didn't have modern science back then. They had no clue about how to prevent certain infections, diseases, how to achieve certain things. So they just had to go with, I guess, just intuition. And a lot of that was just based around pretty gross stuff, I guess. But yeah, human beings, we've not really changed that much, apart from the fact that now we have science, so we don't have to really do as much weird stuff to try and achieve good health. But really, really interesting list. I'm definitely going to continue with this series because I literally hadn't, I had heard of none of the entries on that list. They were all new to me, and as dirty as the most of them were, it definitely piqued my interest. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.